Hi, this is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom, and I'm the ambassador for Heaven's creating and protecting goddesses and dark angels over life. Well, today we are burying Mr. Floyd, who was murdered. Okay, he was murdered. He was murdered. Murdered. We're under the dragon. He's under just murdered. He was murdered. There's no other way to say it. Murdered. This is a long history with it's a very complicated history. And I am pressed not to say too much right this minute because I've already said things about having been a whistleblower to support the African American community, having been shot down, not by my African American colleagues, but my white colleagues, like NG4S, and they are the racists here in Florida and in Canada. How many black people live in Canada? Not many, okay? But I have to address some of this looking at, I'm going to bring up karma in a moment, but I'm going to say that the African American elite in this country has not helped the average African American person, period. When Mrs. Obama, and I have spoken at length about how the middle class has left much of the public school system, and in Florida it's outrageous. There are basically no whistleblowing rights. What they're doing in the classroom in many cases is horrific, non-instructional. I'm going to save that for later. But my question to these same African American people is, I don't see your children in public schools. When Mrs. Obama last year or earlier, yes, last year, questioned why there's this horrible exodus in the public school system, I have to ask myself, where were her kids? What public schools did they go to? How did they volunteer in those public schools? How did their friends who were African Americans or white who were their friends, how did they get them to go to the public schools in these areas? And they didn't. Now, my kids, and I was a teacher, my daughter went into that public school. But, I mean, I also didn't have any money, but that's where my daughter went. And I wanted her to be in a public school. I wanted it to be successful. And the reason why it's not very successful is because, at least in the state of Florida, it's so corrupt in so many areas. And it was that way in New Brunswick as well. It wasn't this way in New York when I went to school. I don't know what it is like today, okay? But I'm hearing for other people that it's a lot better. Having said that, they're not there making a presence in public schools, both with their children and showing up as adults in public schools. Why? Why? Two. In terms of violence against women, the Obama retaliated against me. I have been retaliated against with the police. I have no protection under the law. They have wanted me dead. You can't go to the FBI and get any help or anything like that. The Obamas did the same thing. African American police officers, they do the same thing. They turn a blind eye. Not with everything for everybody, but generally speaking, they turn a blind eye. If we take a look at things like the number of women who are killed, sometimes killed publicly, and I've had police officers, knowing that I'm being abused, turn around and walk away and question me. What is the problem with police officers? Now, I'm going to say something, and it's a difficult thing for me to say because we are all grieving over this. And I'm one of these people that when I taught ESE, my kids all came to me because they thought of me as the Christian. I had African American colleagues that I got along with, but they would tell their kids to put their fannies in, their black fannies in, and they would swear at their own kids. And they are not out there fighting the lying that is required of them in the public school system. And by not fighting that, they're not getting the education that they should be getting. They're folding. I mean, I got into trouble for not folding. I kept getting into trouble for not folding. And I have seen violence of African American kids by African American kids, and you can't even get help for that situation. So, where are these prominent African American people with their children coming into the schools, bringing real music programs, speaking about all their artists? I'm going to tell you, artists do not love the average person. They're not helping these people at all. People are out there spending money in their area, but they're not helping the kids. The money is not going into the schools to provide arts programs. The kids in Florida might have a music class in high school or in elementary school. It might be twice over a 6-day period for a half an hour. Well, and their gym class works out to be something like that too. And this is not a music program. You basically walk there, sit down, have a few minutes, get up, walk back. We have middle school music programs. We know that kids think better when they have real music and real arts and these other support services like enough guidance counselors instead of guidance counselors checking that they're doing things, and ESE teachers down here checking that they're getting things done when they're not getting things done, and they're handing the kids the questions, or the kids are all sitting in the classrooms and they all have their cell phones out and they're all cheating. Not all of them, 3/4 of them. Excuse me? Excuse me. I know I've been a whistleblower. That's how they act in the state. And they're violent. You don't have to be black to have people threaten you every day. Why haven't the African American elite questioned Microsoft and all those other people who produced all those vaccines that were busy hitting all of the people, the kids in Africa and the kids in India? Why? Where are you? Where is this outrage on your part? Where is the outrage that Microsoft is going? That SpaceX, and it's going on right now, and this is going to affect African Americans and hurt you far more than anything else. Where is the outrage of all of SpaceX? It's going to be 4,200. First, it was going to be 1,200 satellites. Then it was going to be 4,200 satellites. Now it's 12,000 satellites. And then they're thinking about 42,000 satellites. And they're going to light up, and we're dead. And where are these great Al Sharptons and people like this? Where are you? Where are you in terms of protecting? Even if you were to speak out about this and protect the African Americans, it would trickle down to the rest of us. So when you talk about a social consciousness, well, I'm not feeling it. This is on your part. Imagine I have a thing on it about how the African American men decimated their own civil rights movement when they decimated the women's rights movement. By decimating the women's rights movement, and that's exactly what you did when Martin Luther King, I had his wife came to my college commencement. She was our speaker. He decimated the women's rights movement when he showed up, and it was a homosexual black man who interviewed him for Playboy in 1965. Longest interview he ever gave, right after he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He decimated the real women's rights movement. And we had Gloria Steinem out there trying to expose what went on Playboy. And we have an African American woman who designed the Playboy Bunny outfit. You know, what goes around comes around, folks. When you decimated the family and made sin okay, it hit your family. You want to straighten out the civil rights movement, straighten out what you did to half of the population, because you didn't. You sided with the bad guys, the same bad guys that you go to lunch with, that Obama goes to the Microsoft meetings and all those other things with, as does Sharpton, as do all of them. They all show up at the same place. You're not standing up and doing anything. It's just wah, 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 wah. You're not looking after the kids. Your artists aren't investing in their own African-American kids. It's all their own money. It's all poor me. It's all I'm living in Shadowland. It's all I'm an Illuminati doing some sort of strange hand signal. And you're okay with the dragon being up in the sky. And you know that that's satanic, and it's from the Bible, and you do it anyway, and you're not protecting your own people. You are willing to have them be exterminated. And then you haven't even covered on what's going on in Africa. I mean, if 30% of the men have even 3 wives, what happened to the rest of the men? Like they don't exist. All those abortions, Playboy was a major pusher for abortion, and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and all of you are out there pushing and saying how great the Playboy guy is, but he's the one with the friends on the Supreme Court. And so now all these abortions that all your women are having, oh, your hands are so dirty. Yes, they are. I can see a swath of sinners sitting yonder, and they are acting like a pack of fools. Shame on you. If anything's going to get done, it's because my things are going to go out, and I'm going to go out and fight for those kids, because this is something you have never done. You have never done this. And when Martin Luther King died, nobody looted the country like this. Think about that. I mean, he did do that thing to women, which was out. You want help for your own civil rights movement, and you go in promoting sin, trashing women. It's incredible. Okay. Alrighty. So with that in mind, let's see if I can actually go out and do something for African Americans, because I know you do not really step up for Africa. And I know those elites had all their deals with Microsoft and all these satellites going over, and they're going to control all their own people and maybe even destroy them. You just need them around long enough to build the canals that you want. I don't know. Shame on you. Not even beyond shame on you. Well, okay, I'm done. I had a great relationship with my African American kids, not my Haitian kids. My Haitian kids, that was what I had a problem with when I was at Congress Middle School. But my African American kids, I had a great relationship with them. I had a great relationship with my African American colleagues. The only people I really had big problems with were my colleagues that have blonde hair. Yeah. There you go. All right. Sharpton, shame on you. Oh my God. You have not stood up for the real hurt. And Obamas, you do not show up and really bring those programs into the kids for the arts and that. And you don't really bring in what they need. Okay.